Congresswoman Shelley Pingree. Welcome to the Young Turks.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
We appreciate your presence. Can you tell us what movement you started, if I can put it that way, what effort you have to push for the public option?
Well, we just figured that since there's this kind of window of opportunity, as you said, there was a lot of very discouraged feelings after we realized we didn't have 60 votes in the Senate and some of the deals people had been working on weren't going to go forward. And some of us said, hey, if we're going back to the drawing board, why not make sure that the public option gets back into the debate? So one of my colleagues, Jared Polis from Boulder, Colorado, and I put together a letter and made an argument to Senator Reid and others, and just said, hey, don't move in the wrong direction. Think again about the public option and the value that it plays in bringing down the costs and fighting against insurance companies. And we circulated amongst our colleagues. As of tonight, I think we have 60 signatures in the House, which is great. As you know, the public option passed in the House bill. And, we just figure we're back in the fight. As you said, you never know what the final legislation is going to look like, whether even we're going to get a bill passed. But I come from a state where healthcare is, a serious issue for people, and we have one Anthem, basically insurance company that controls 80% of the insurance market here. And my state is 38th in per capita income. People are struggling to pay the bills, and I just feel like you can't pass a health care plan unless you get a little competition for the insurance companies.
Well, I'm interested in two things here. One is the mechanics behind this, and two is the substance. Let's talk about the mechanics first, because there's a lot to learn there. So when you started with Congressman Polis, there was just two of you. Did you work with outside groups outside of the Capitol to put pressure, or not necessarily pressure, but to enlist other congressmen on your side?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the outside groups have been great, and I hesitate to try to start listing them, but I know Move On and the group that Adam Green works with, and a whole variety of other groups have really been pushing on their members of Congress. I mean, the first push was just to say, don't let your member lose their spine over this. Healthcare is still a huge issue for this country. It's a huge issue for the economy. And so there were petitions being circulated on, just tell your congressperson to buck up and support some kind of healthcare plan. And then when we put this letter out there, I have to say, people have been, advocacy groups have been sending out the letter saying call your member of Congress if they're not on it, and we've had several of our colleagues saying, please tell them to back off. I'll sign up. And so people should never dismiss the importance of making that phone call, sending the email. It really does help, and it reminds people that there's a lot of the public out there who wants us to pass a health care bill. And I think in the wake of Massachusetts, you often think, oh, God, the whole country is opposed to health care. And, look, they didn't change overnight. There's a lot of people who want a good plan, who, there's many people in my district who say, why don't you just go back to single payer? So I think we have to recognize there's both ends of the spectrum here.
So you guys start a letter to get people to sign on the public option, and then Democracy for America, Progressive Change Campaign Committee, Move On, Credo, et cetera, they blast it out to the citizens in different congressional districts, and they ask their congressman to join you. So then some of those guys join you, and then it grows and it grows, and now you're up to 60 in a matter of a couple of days. Is that roughly right?
That's roughly right, and we haven't closed the letter yet, so it's still, plenty of time to call. And I think people have to understand, you have a lot of power out there as an average citizen, and you got to use it. All
right, so now let's get to the substance of it. So you guys are going to do this letter, and of course, my guess is it will still grow. Is it going to affect the Senate? Because I don't believe that the senators want a public option. I think they're in the pockets of corporate America, and they're just, telling us stories about how they really want it. But, oh, boo-hoo, the Republicans don't let us have it. But they have absolutely no intention of ever passing it. Now, that's a very skeptical point of view, but that skepticism is well-earned. So am I wrong, first?
Well, first you have to be careful when you say, I don't believe senators want the public option, because we've got, 100 United States senators, and the question is, do we have 51 senators who want the public option? And, they have argued in the past, some of my progressive colleagues, that yes, they can get 51 votes. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. Different things happen when you feel the public pressure. than when you're not feeling any pressure at all and you're sitting back and feeling like, okay, I don't need to vote for, a difficult decision. So I share your cynicism in many ways, and I feel a little bit discouraged that we're not going to get the public the health care bill that they truly need to cut costs. On the other hand, I'm not willing to, turn around and go home. And, you can't say senators, you got to say we got a lot of people who are in the pockets of the insurance company or basically don't believe in health care reform, but do we have enough who we convince that, hey, this makes it a better bill? I mean, remember, there was a time when nobody thought we would get this through the House after the August recess when everybody said, oh, there's too many protesters out there, we'll never get it. And, a few months later, we actually got a health care bill that had a public option. Maybe not as strong as some of us wanted, but, we got it. So my rule of thumb in politics, never say never, never back down, and, don't overthink these things. You got to be a little bit of an optimist.
All right, look, I like your attitude, and I love the action you put behind it, okay? Now, so give me a little bit of hope, okay, because today I'm running low on hope. The whole country was against Ben Bernanke. They did polls that were overwhelmingly against him. They thought he represented Wall Street and not Main Street. They just lost in Massachusetts, where people thought that the Democrats were too much in league with the Wall Street guys, and yet they make this colossal blunder of pushing Bernanke through. So that leads me to believe we're not in charge, the Wall Street guys, corporate America, et cetera, are in charge. But so tell me how we can change that. I mean, you're a congresswoman. You know, obviously, other congresspeople and senators. What will actually get a senator or a representative to move the position?
Public pressure. Honestly, when you hear from your district that they have to have this, that they believe in it, that they don't want you to back down, eventually that makes a big difference. Now, one part of the cynicism I want to share, with you. On the one hand, I believe you got to wake up every day. Today you might be discouraged about Wall Street. Tomorrow you got to go back to the fight again. And if we didn't, we would have rolled up the tent and gone home a long time ago. But the other side of it that I do share with you, and something I'm strongly supporting, and is off the topic, but I'm a big proponent of the Fair Elections Bill because I think with the Supreme Court decision, we're going to have increasing amount of power on the part of corporations. They've got a huge window of opportunity now that leads to elections. And if we don't get public financing of candidates like we have here in the state of Maine where I live, we're never going to turn this system around so it really serves the American public. That's a little bit of a longer-term goal, but that's actually a very hot potato on the table right now as well because in the wake of the Supreme Court decision, you're going to see new legislation proposed by Congress. But in the short run, the health care battle isn't over till it's over, and if people decide too early, they're too clever for their own good and they've already decided what's going to happen, then nobody's pushing on the Senate and they do, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I thought they were bad. I thought they wouldn't vote my way, so I didn't bother to do anything, and it makes it easy for them. And, even if they cast a vote you don't like, they should feel a little pain when they do it.
Representative Pingree, I once again agree with you completely on the Fair Elections Bill and the centrality of that issue, because if you don't tackle that, you're going to lose on every issue. So,
exactly.
Yeah, so now can we have a small conversation on that in the 2 minutes we have left?
Sure.
How well does it work in Maine in your estimation?
Oh, it's changed the culture of politics in Maine. Look, everything isn't perfect here, but we've had that in place since 2000. I have to say my daughter happens to be the Speaker of the House. I'm very proud of her. She's 33 years old. She ran under this bill. She's recruited, more young people to run for office and more people who never thought they would run for. And, the important thing to remember is 80% of the people who run for state legislature, Republicans and Democrats, use it. So it's really changed the culture. You come in and spend a lot of money. You can be independently funded and do that. But people look at you and say, hey, why aren't you running, we call it clean elections, why aren't you running as a clean candidate? It means you sit in your committee and you're not thinking, oh, who do I have to call up for a contribution today? You just think, is this a good policy or not? I think it's changed the culture completely. We have over 130 co-sponsors in the House right now, and I talk to my colleagues. They get up from a vote and they go fundraise because in this climate right now, you got to raise millions of dollars to come back. And even if you're on the right side, you're always thinking about raising money and who you can get money from. If we don't change it, we're doomed in the long run.
Do you think that eventually that'll trickle up to the senators in Maine? Because the senators in Maine are complete corporatists. You know, Susan Collins and Olympia Snowe have made a career out of pretending to be centrist, but in fact doing whatever corporate America told them to do.
Well, I mean, I think if we change the election laws in this country, it doesn't happen overnight, but it certainly would change the distinction of, what it means to be somebody who, makes a good policy decision, not is, always thinking about the next election.
Okay. And I'm sorry, in the minute that we have left, the Fair Elections Bill, how similar is it to what's happened in Maine?
Very similar, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, some of the lawyers who worked on the court cases in Maine to defend our bill helped write that bill in Congress. It's sponsored by Larson in the House, who's a member of leadership, Durbin in the Senate. I mean, it's got the best shot it's ever had. But if people don't get behind it at this particular moment, we'll pass some other, weak, knuckled thing that really doesn't make a difference, and we'll just be back to the same old place. Because, look, no politician likes to change the way that they got elected. And this is a huge change in our culture.
All right, Congresswoman Shelley Pingree from Maine, really great pleasure to have you on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Keep up the good work. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much.